Today, we become legends.
The Season of Celebration is launching tomorrow, and it brings a bunch of changes to the game, from the Conquest map update to new mechanics and items to some very spicy balance changes and more. So I thought in this video I'd talk about why this update is a really good step in the right direction and what I like and don't like about it. So let's jump in. Oh, but quickly before we do start, there's a gem sale going on over at my Nexus right now at nexus.gg/intersect. If you want to cop some gems for the upcoming Odyssey in this new patch, then you can head over there and I get a little bit of a kickback at no extra cost to you. But back to the video. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the spicy balance changes for this patch, which are quite a controversial topic at the moment. These changes are meant to give significant buffs and new ways to play older gods that haven't seen play in a long time and have been power creeped or mechanic creeped by new gods. I think in general these changes are great. These older gods can't really be updated just by giving them 20 more damage on all their abilities and 2 seconds off all their cooldowns. They need more than that, and for the most part these spicy balance changes are just what they needed. In total, 11 gods got these major changes, and I think for the most part they were good choices, and the buffs they got make sense and will definitely improve their overall feel and give them a better place in the meta. Some were a bit less spicy than others. For example, Arthur's changes didn't really make him play any different or give him any new stuff, but just buffed quite a few different aspects of his kit, while Cabrakan plays completely differently with these new buffs. There are, however, a couple of outliers that I think weren't a great idea for these changes, and Ares is the main one. The changes themselves I think are pretty cool. I like the idea of making his auto cancels in between his one hit super hard, and being able to buff his teammates' auto damage gives him a bit more of a niche on specific teams. However, Ares didn't need even a single buff going into this patch, never mind 4 different huge buffs. Sure, they nerfed his chain damage by 5 at all ranks and his 2's duration by 2 seconds, but Ares was pretty strong after these changes last patch, and this was unneeded, I think. If anything, they should have reverted his changes from last patch before applying these ones, because Ares is going to be insane in this new patch. I also mentioned this on my patch notes review video, but I don't think King Arthur needed this much either. Giving him the HP 5 from his passive would have been completely enough for him in my opinion, since he's not really particularly bad at the moment and will be really strong after these changes. Thoth is similar. I don't think Thoth was that bad at all, and if anything he needed a small buff, but he got a lot in this patch. And finally, while Apollo did need some major buffs to turn him around, I'm still not looking forward to split push Apollo meta and having him ult over to my lane at 8 minutes in to gang my ass. However, other than these few pet peeves, I think overall these spicy changes are a great idea. There would have been some gods from this list that I didn't include and some other gods I would have put in their place, but in general these changes bring a ton of freshness to their respective gods, and I've been having a blast playing them on the PTS. There is one caveat though. Any balance issues need to be ironed out fairly quickly. If these kinds of changes are going to be made somewhat frequently, like once a season or so, they need to get good at reacting to or even predicting how strong these gods will be after changes like this and balancing them within a couple of patches. I really don't want to see Ares, Osiris, Apollo, or any of these gods really be on top of the meta for 6 months without being nerfed down to a reasonable level. But as long as that can be avoided, I'm all for making more of these changes in the future. But moving on, let's talk about some of the new stuff for Season of Celebration. Firstly, the new recipe items. I think in general these are a great addition to Smite, and they bring a bit more intrigue to the early and mid game without power creeping the general item pool. They have no stats, so you're pretty much just looking for the passive effect that is most useful to you and grabbing that. It makes some characters that use Golden Blade able to not buy it and get something else more important in their build, or even double up on them with the Gooseberries. It allows Hebo to have a 0-second cooldown on his 1 with the Bountiful Bow, and I'm sure there's a few other cool god combos that I'm yet to uncover. When the full patch goes live, there will be exponentially more people trying these out than on the PTS, so I imagine a few new strats will be discovered with the recipes. They're all pretty unique in their effect, but I will say they're not super well balanced from my experience. Gooseberries is almost uncontested the best recipe, with Bow being the only one that comes close, while the drumstick is by far the worst option since it can just get pinged off you by a single basic attack from a frontliner and is kind of hard to use. I found myself mostly going Bow on ability based solo laners and Gooseberries on AA solo laners instead, but overall these are cool new mechanics for the season that allow some interesting build options for tons of gods. I don't think these will survive the season, however. They changed the game a bit too much and will probably be best to just be a seasonal gimmick that's removed at the start of next year, since there's not really enough variety like there is with starter items. But in general, great new mechanic, and I'm looking forward to playing with it. Something that I think shouldn't be removed after this season though is the Shaman Camp. I would actually love it if this mechanic was evergreen, as it's pretty simple, doesn't change the game too much, and has many options for player expression. The Shaman Camp spawns 5 different masks over the course of the game that sit on each jungle buff camp and allow you to select one of 5 different bonuses to your buff pickup. From CDR to attack speed to pen to bonus health to lifesteal, these effects are all pretty unique and can give, for example, an auto attack solo laner access to to a mini purple buff on top of their blue, or mid laners some cooldown reduction on top of their red. Shaman Camp is a great addition, and I don't really have anything bad to say about it. The randomness of the spawns can be a little annoying, but there's not much to be done about that. You can't make the mask rotation order the same for every game, or 1, it would be boring, and 2, it would buff one role way more than the others. For example, if purple mask was the first mask every game, ADCs and other auto attackers would just become inherently a lot stronger than ability characters or tanks. So having it random is the best way to go, and is at least symmetrical per team, so you don't have to worry about their ADC getting attack speed while yours gets cooldown reduction or whatever. But yeah, great mechanic overall. And finally, let's talk about the general conquest changes in the new season. Firstly, the new map artwork looks amazing. This is probably the nicest looking map we've had since the start of year 10, and it's a massive improvement over the Season of Souls map. It's brighter, more colourful, more interesting, and the jungle area feels more closed in. The dual lane beach looks great as always, and the new fire giant pit makes fights much more interesting in such an open area. The beacon can also now activate a second time after the first round of Unleashed Titans, which will allow a second push that could help end games that are going over the 40 to 45 minute mark. You likely won't experience the second Unleashed Titans that much, since the first one has to happen, then you have to wait 5 minutes, and then you have to capture 3 more beacons before they unleash again. So it will definitely happen around the 40 to 50 minute mark in most games, which with the ridiculously long game times right now, might happen sometimes, but it definitely won't happen every game. Okay, I know I said finally for those conquest changes, but one truly final note on the nerfs we got this patch. Everyone is paying attention to the crazy buffs this patch, but we did get quite a few heavily requested gods nerfed as well. The standout is of course Martikaras, who got his lifesteal, 1 cooldown, and ult damage and cooldown nerfed pretty substantially. This was honestly long overdue, as this god has been terrorizing queues for like 6 months at this point, and even these nerfs probably aren't enough to completely take him out of the meta. He still has all the inherent qualities that make his kit fundamentally broken, so I imagine he will still have a place in the meta, but might not be the literal best god in the game anymore. Thor's nerfs though were a bit more tame. He did lose some base damage on his hammer, which is what I've been calling for as an ideal nerf to him, but it was only 10 damage at all ranks, which is 30 for the double tap, and also 10% scaling on his ult landing damage. This just isn't enough to stop Thor doing what he's doing right now, and I think a larger nerf to the one's base damage and some kind of nerf to the ult spark damage or cooldown would have been great. To be completely honest, and I mentioned this a lot, I think physical auto attack scaling just needs to be nerfed across the board from 100% down to 80 or 85%. You can then buff the hunter's class bonus or other aspects if necessary, and fine tune any AA cancelling assassins that were particularly hurt by the change, because as it is, 100% power scaling on physical basic attacks just makes gods like Susanoo, Achilles, Loki, Thor, all these kind of gods really hard to balance, because they just add 3 to 400% power scaling to their kit for free by using AA cancels. So if you nerf the base damage or scaling of their kits, you're never taking away from their extra 400% of their power that they just have for free, which makes them very hard to balance. But anyway, this is dangerously close to turning into a rant video, and I don't want to do that because this patch in general is a huge W. I just think the nerfs in this patch were a bit hit and miss. But yeah, that's all I've got for this one. Catch you guys in another video later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.